Our next question comes from Doc Incredible, who says, what do people with degrees from Chinese sport universities actually do with those degrees? If you didn't know, there are universities of sport here in China. There's a big one here in Shanghai. There's one in Beijing. There's one in Xi'an that offer degrees up to a PhD level in various martial arts. Wushu with an emphasis in Taolu, that's the forms. Wushu with an emphasis in Sanda, that's free fighting, Chinese kickboxing. Wushu with an emphasis in Shuaijiao, wrestling. And you can also get up to a PhD in Taekwondo, wrestling, judo, gymnastics, a bunch of other physical culture things. Sports, because it's a sports university. People study sports there. Surprise. A lot of people are shocked by that because most universities throughout the world offer academic subjects, liberal arts, fine arts, sciences, etc., and not so much sports. Now, I have a couple of different degrees. I went to Brigham Young University where I got a degree in Spanish language and a degree in health and human performance with an emphasis in modern dance. That is a physical culture related degree. There are other people who got degrees in coaching, for example. At Brigham Young University, my friend Kevin, we used to play in a band together. Shout out to Kevin Esco, awesome guitarist, awesome singer-songwriter, love that dude to death. He got a degree in coaching. Did you know you can do that? Well, it's one. If I could go back to school, I would pursue a degree in coaching. That would be very interesting to me, especially since I'm a coach now. I'm a coach without a degree in coaching. One of the most common questions I got when I was going to school was, what are you going to do with a degree in Spanish and dance? And I would reply, speak Spanish and dance. And have a college degree and go from there. A huge percentage of college degrees do not translate directly into a job. This is something a lot of people don't know. Most four-year university degrees, it's not a trade school where you go into college and you walk out with your diploma and then people just hand you a job related to your field of study. There are some people with very specialized degrees who go down a similar path to what I just described, but most people don't. You go into a college and you get a Bachelor of Arts, for example, in a language. What do you do with that? Well, if you don't have a teaching endorsement, well, you can't teach. So what do you do with that, with just a Bachelor of Arts and no teaching endorsement? Well, a Bachelor of Arts, of liberal arts, is supposed to teach you how to think for yourself. So what do? You think for yourself, and you think your way out of the predicament you've just put yourself in by going to college for 4 years to get a degree that does not translate directly to a job. So good luck, right? But we're asking about Chinese sports universities. What do people with degrees from Chinese sport universities actually do with those degrees? The obvious answer would be international competition, but there aren't really international Sanda competitions. Well, there are. There actually are, but that's not all they do, folks. At least not enough to merit an entire sports college department for them. What does a doctorate in Kung Fu actually get you? Besides a chance at a job handing out Kung Fu degrees at a Chinese sports university. I understand that the CCP might be interested in promoting it as a cultural art and subsidizing, teaching it as a matter of nationalism and all that, but that only explains why the schools teach it. So, what's in it for the students themselves? Well, I did not go through the Chinese sport university system. My friend Antonio did. We did a podcast about it. It's one of my most viewed podcasts with Dr. Antonio Gracefo. He has a PhD in Wushu, emphasis in Shuaijiao, wrestling, from the Shanghai University of Sport. He lived with the Shaolin monks at the Shaolin Temple for a pretty long time in 2 separate decades. He's published a bunch of books, traveled the world, fought professionally in MMA, competed in a bunch of different wrestling styles, Mongolian wrestling, Indian wrestling, Chinese wrestling, etc., etc. Super interesting guy, so he would be the type of guy to talk to about this. But The reason I'm answering this question is just because it reminds me so much of that question I was always asked: what are you going to do with yourself? You ever seen that Twisted Sister music video? We're not going to take it anymore. We're at the beginning. There's a family, a dad, a mom, a son, and the son loves playing the guitar, and his dad yells at him and throws all his stuff on the floor. Clean up this pigsty. This room's a mess. You're a disgrace, etc., etc. What are you going to do with your life? And the kid looks up at him and says, I want to rock. And then he turns into Dee Snider and they start singing the song. We're not going to take it anymore. It's awesome. It's a great music video. I love it. But it reminds me a lot of real questions people ask you when you go to college. What are you going to do with yourself? What are you going to do with that college degree? When I was a kid in America, we were indoctrinated with this idea that after high school, if you're a smart person, if you want to get ahead in the world and not be stuck in a little cow town in Idaho like everybody else who didn't go to college, hanging outside of the mini-mart next to the high school, whistling at the girls, being creepy, what you needed to do was go to college. And there at college, you would get a degree and then walk out the door and be given a job and be happy for the rest of your life. That was the idea. That was the American dream that was sold to my generation, and it turned out that was a lie for most people. I don't know if most people need to go to college, but everybody needs to get an education. And the face of education is changing largely thanks to the internet. There are, man, how many people with PhDs are there in the world? How many? It's not really that many. It's less than 1 million. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 100,000 people with PhDs in the world alive today. It's not a lot when you spread that out throughout the entire human population, but if we want to solve the big problems in the world, we're probably going to need more than that, exponentially more than that. Experts who specialize in stuff and are able to get stuff done. And are we going to be able to do that by essentially creating indentured servants, by sending kids who can't afford to go to these hyper-inflated price tags, which are private universities, and get themselves into student debt for which they can't even claim bankruptcy if they're bankrupt, and then essentially be indentured servants for the rest of their foreseeable future. And what do they learn from that experience? They go out and get a liberal arts degree where they can't get a real job. And they end up working in fast food or something like that. And their coworkers get really depressed because their coworkers who are working, going to night school to get their GED, thinking, after this I'm going to go to community college night school, I'm going to get my degree, and I'm going to get out of this place. I'm going to stop working at this dumb taco shop and make something of myself. I'm going to pull myself up by the bootstraps. And then somebody with a 4-year degree from a respectable university is now their coworker, and this person who emigrated from Central America is looking up at you like, what the heck, man? You're not supposed to work here. You're supposed to be succeeding in life. And you're here with me. I just came from Guatemala here, and I'm making tacos at a Tex-Mex place. This sounds hypothetical, but man, I'm telling you a personal narrative right here. After college, my first job was at a taco fast food place. Which one was it, man? I can't even remember the name. Some taco shop. And my coworkers just looked so depressed when they found out I had a college degree. And they were like, you just shattered my hopes and dreams, man. You just shattered my hopes and dreams, because I was taught the same thing you were, that if I can just go to college, that's my way out of this mess. And there I was, living proof, not exactly. You got to do something more than just go to college. So I struggled a lot after graduating from Brigham Young University, getting a 4-year degrees in Spanish and modern dance. I briefly worked at a couple of dance studios, and I briefly worked as a professional dancer in a couple of different ballet companies, but none of those would pay the bills. They're not high-paying jobs. In fact, it worked out to be like less than minimum wage for the amount of work I had to put in. They're not jobs I could pay basic bills with. Not even basic bills, man. And so I'm working at a taco shop, and I end up working as many of these low-paying minimum wage jobs as I can get because nobody else is hiring. And it's a struggle, and I am surrounded with this medical debt because the healthcare industry in the United States is broken. It's absolutely broken. It's stupidly broken. You get sick, you go say hi to a doctor, suddenly you're an indentured servant for the rest of your foreseeable future. You got to file bankruptcy. It's terrible, man. There's no way you can work out a medical debt. And that's a reality for millions of Americans. But what about insurance? Oh, you're one of the lucky ones who has insurance you can afford that actually pays enough for you to afford the health care. Man, I remember first time I could afford insurance after college. I got myself some insurance that paid 50%. 50% of medical costs. Sounds like a pretty good deal, right? Until you actually go in because you got a serious injury. So you go and see the doctor, and the doctor tells you, sorry to say, but your insurance isn't good enough to cover the services that I offer. Well, what's wrong with my leg, doctor? You can't afford to know. Sorry. It's broken beyond belief, man. Stupidly broken. But you're asking about Kung Fu and China and sports universities. Let's work our ways back to that. So, I was a struggling college graduate, working all these crappy jobs. Ended up working in a factory. That was one of the highest paying jobs I got after college. Factory work, hard manual labor. And a lot of the folks there at the factory, same thing. They're doing part-time night school with the little time they have, trying to get ahead, thinking if I get this degree, I can get out of this damnable factory and make something of myself. And they find out there's a college man in their midst. And this dashes their hopes and their dreams. And they're like, the American dream is a lie. It's a lie. I think my existence depressed a lot of my coworkers back then. Depressed a lot of people. But this is not a let's feel sorry for Ramsey story. No, man, no. Ramsey came out on top at the end. So I ended up working as a I'm not sure what the actual title is. I worked at a U-Haul station for a while. That was one of my last jobs in the United States of America after college. Worked at a U-Haul station. And I did some basic maintenance on trucks and trailers and helped put some hitches on and cleaned up and rented out trucks to people and drove trucks around and refueled trucks and just U-Haul stuff. Manned the front desk, sold people boxes, filled out paperwork, blah, 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 mopped the floor. You name it, we did it. You know, just running a rental truck station, if you don't know what U-Haul is, if you're not from the USA. That was a pretty good job. I enjoyed working at U-Haul because I had a really awesome manager, actually. The manager was a great guy. It's kind of a pity that the term Karen has become synonymous with the annoying lady who always wants to speak to the manager and makes life very difficult for customer service representatives, people manning the cash register. But there was a Karen who came in one day and she starts yelling at me, causing a fuss, saying, I want to speak to your manager. My manager's standing right there next to me, and he says, you can leave, miss. And she says, and then implodes. And he was an awesome dude. Man, Rob over at U-Haul, love you, man. You're a great dude. Anyway, what do these folks over here in China do with a degree from the Shanghai Sports University? Once again, I can't speak from experience. I know a few folks. My friend Michael, he's a Chinese guy. That's his English name. I never actually learned his Mandarin name, but he has a master's degree in Taekwondo from the Shanghai University of Sport. You know what he does? He teaches Taekwondo at the Shanghai University of Sport. And in his free time, he would travel all the way from Pudong over to my gym in Puxi on the other side of the city to train with me. Awesome, awesome dude. Really, really tall guy. Guy's like over 7 feet tall. People are always shocked when they see tall Chinese people. Well, guess what? China has some of the tallest human beings on this planet, and the shortest, and everything in between. It's just that the average, the national average, is pretty average. So what else do they do besides end up being professors and teachers at a university? Well, if you get a PhD, for most people, that means they end up as a professor of that subject at a university somewhere. That's why there's a fairly limited amount of them. There are some out there doing research. There are some on the engineering end who are making stuff, getting stuff done, making the world turn around, or so it seems. But you know who some of the most important people on this planet are? That most people never think about? The wastewater technicians of the world. Man, I've been thinking about wastewater technicians a lot lately. If you don't know, I'm over here in Shanghai, China, and Shanghai is currently locked down citywide. There are 26 million, an excess of 26 million people in this city with limited or no access to food and potable water. That shocks people from the United States of America specifically, because most parts of the United States have potable water that comes out of a tap. You can drink it. Now, I grew up in a small farming town, and within the city limits, we had potable water that came out of a tap, but a lot of my friends weren't so lucky. They had well water, and some of them had what they would call colloquially egg water, or well water contaminated with sulfur, so it smelled like rotten eggs. So, man, I remember some of my friends growing up with egg water, and if I would visit their house, it'd be like, oh man, this... No wonder they don't like drinking water. It is no wonder. Not every American has access to the type of clean, sparkling, sweet, unadulterated water that you might if you live in a city in the United States, and that is all thanks to the wastewater technicians of the world, man. You want a job with job stability? Be a wastewater technician in America, because the country cannot survive without you. If all the wastewater technicians decided they didn't want to go to work anymore, you know what would happen? You'd all die of thirst pretty quick. Your toilets would back up. You wouldn't have what you need to survive in a city. It just wouldn't work. So, man, my hat goes off to the folks at the wastewater community. You guys are awesome. I love you guys. But here in Shanghai, we don't have potable water that comes out of the taps. The water that comes out of taps is for cleaning. Why can't you drink it? Well, it's contaminated with heavy metals, lead, and I don't know what other metals, but you can't drink it. It's not good for you. It'll probably give you cancer or kidney infections or destroy your liver. But as far as I can tell, it kills 99% of all germs on cleaning surfaces. Probably not, but I like to joke about that. So where do the people of Shanghai get their water? They generally get it in bottled form. It's shipped in from out of town. Spring water, sparkling water, volcanic spring water. I don't know, just all types of different distilled water from distilleries. But you can't drink what comes out of the tap. And there are a lot of countries that are in this same situation. They don't have potable water. And this is hard for a lot of people to wrap their minds around because they've never stepped outside of the United States, and they don't know what it's like living in a country that does not have potable water coming out of a tap. And in a great twist of irony, a lot of Americans who live in these beautiful cities with pristine, drinkable water coming out of the tap still won't even touch the tap water because they think it's too icky. Meanwhile, over here in Shanghai, a lot of people are going thirsty. But anyway, that's beside the point. What were we talking about? College degrees. What did my friend Dr. Antonio Gracefo do with his PhD in Wushu? Well, he ended up teaching some different subjects. He ended up becoming a world adventurer, a globe trotter, going around the world. He produced a web TV series, Martial Arts Odyssey. Wrote some books. A college degree is not a job. I don't know who needs to hear that, but some of you do. A college degree is not a job. It's not an outline for your future. College is information and tactics and techniques to open up your mind, hopefully to get you start thinking about making the world a better place at most, and at the very least making your own life better for you and for those in your immediate vicinity. That's why the big, giant price tag. I don't know, man. I don't know. Because people want to make money, and they don't care who has to pay. At the end of the day, anyway, what do we do with a college degree in Wushu? I have another former student had a master's degree in Wushu, Taolu, the forms, and she ended up as an English teacher in Shanghai. So her vocation was not directly related to her degree. How many of you out there have a degree that is directly related to your vocation? As I mentioned before, I have a degree in Health and Human Performance, Modern Dance Emphasis. This is a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. And there is definitely some crossover with mixed martial arts and coaching, because they're both aspects of physical culture and require training and movement and kinesthetic bodily intelligence, etc., but they're not directly related. Spanish, I got a degree in Spanish. How helpful is that over here in the People's Republic of China? Not very. I have a couple of friends from Spanish-speaking countries, but they all speak English very, very well, and they don't address me in Spanish very often. So, yeah, man. Do I regret getting those specific degrees? No, but if I could go back to college again, which I actually have. I forgot to tell you my community college story where I went back to college again pursuing a degree in fitness technology and exercise science. It's kind of funny getting an associate's degree after you already have a bachelor's degree, but I kind of did it backwards. But that was very helpful. It was very, very helpful going the community college route, because that gave me the kick in the pants that I needed to realize, hey, nobody's going to just hand you the job you want because you have a fancy degree from a fancy university. You have to go out there and make it yourself, which is exactly what I did. And if you want to get what you want, that's exactly what you have to do, man. Speaking of which, go get what you want. Start right now. And the way you're going to do that, get out there and train.